And we are joined by Ambassador TCA Raghavan, former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan, to help us understand this story a little bit more. Ambassador Raghavan, what evidence does Pakistan claim to have to, make this claim that India was involved in the hijacking?
In my opinion, they have no evidence. This is generally a response which Pakistan always has of not accepting responsibility and not accepting its own agency for its numerous domestic issues which it faces. So the response always is to try to externalize the problem in some way. Blame India, blame Afghanistan, blame the United States, blame others. But the problem is a domestic issue which it has to address itself. That is, externalizing the problem is really the worst possible thing to do in the circumstances, because everyone knows that there is a long-standing issue which Pakistan has had in Balochistan, and it has to address that issue frontally rather than try to deal with it with a heavy securitized approach, or simply blame external factors, because that really is a kind of evasion of responsibility and a denial of their own agency in governance.
Indeed, and if we look at the Balochistan Liberation Army itself, what kind of support does it get from entities in Afghanistan?
Well, Balochistan borders Afghanistan. Those borders have always been fluid. These are issues which the Pakistanis have to deal with and address in a cooperative spirit with the government of Afghanistan. Not so long ago, Pakistan was offering its own territory for sanctuary to insurgents from Afghanistan. In many ways, the current regime in Afghanistan operated out of Pakistan when it was attacking targets associated with the earlier administrative architecture and the governance architecture in Afghanistan. So the problem is a simple one, that Pakistan has to realize that it cannot have a dual policy or a two-faced policy towards these issues. It has to centrally confront the fact that it has to abandon using insurgent groups or extremist groups, and thereafter try to build a more cooperative relationship with all its neighbors, and especially with Afghanistan and with India.
Ambassador Raghavan, what geopolitical implications would emerge, if any, from Pakistan's repeated accusations against India?
Well, I think it vitiates the atmosphere further. It shows a lack of seriousness in addressing domestic issues. And finally, it makes the possibility of any kind of cooperative framework developing between India and Pakistan that much more difficult. So I really don't see the point of such accusations. And in fact, it has to address the central domestic challenges that it is facing.
You say it has to address the issues that it's facing, the internal issues, terrorism and the like, but what will it take to restore some kind of stability in the region?
I think it will take a lot of heavy lifting, because no government starts from a clean slate, and Pakistan's establishment has been complicit with many of the policies which are now coming back to haunt it and to, in fact, bite it in the back. So it will have to address by a serious introspection about the nature of the policies it has adopted, and in particular the use of terrorist groups as an instrument of state policy. There has to be a complete break from the past, and there has to be a genuine effort at trying to convince its neighboring countries that there has been a genuine break from the past. People in India will naturally want to know what has happened with regard to the Mumbai terrorist incident. Yes. Why is that case not heading for closure? It is well known that there were groups in Pakistan who were responsible for that major terrorist attack. There has to be closure of some kind on such events from the past which continue to have a major impact on current geopolitics.
And the very way that Pakistan deals with its minorities, how much of an issue is this in the global space? After all, there have been movements, and there is one currently in the United States, highlighting this to a large extent.
Well, the issue of Pakistan's human rights record, one factor, for instance, in this current Balochistan situation is the very poor human rights record of the Pakistan security forces, the large number of enforced disappearances, and that has in fact widened the current insurgency, if we might call it that, in Balochistan from one which was confined to tribal groups to becoming a larger pan-Balochistan issue in which elements of the middle class and groups which are not affiliated with the older tribal leaders have also joined in. So a poor human rights records towards minorities, towards deprived groups is certainly part of the problem which Pakistan has to confront.
To what extent is Pakistan addressing this issue of being the global epicenter of terrorism? And, how much of an issue is this still in, let's say, in the public mind as far as the new powers that be in the United States?
Well, Pakistan is facing a whole host of issues domestically today. It begins with its very, very fragile economic situation, and it extends to the major political polarization. One of the principal political leaders of Pakistan, Imran Khan, is still in jail. At the same time, there is this national security crisis in the form of major terrorist attacks. So there's a whole range and whole host of issues which Pakistan confronts today. To my mind, Pakistan needs to try to convince its principal external interlocutors, that is, its neighboring countries, and also the great powers like the United States, that it is making a genuine effort to address these issues. Because otherwise, what has happened is that its image has suffered such a battering in the last decade or decade and a half that no one really takes Pakistan's claims about what it is doing with any seriousness. So I think restoring its credibility about its capacity and its willingness to take action against terrorist groups will really be the key into its future dealings with both its neighbors and also with major external powers.
So, final question is how much of an impact has the economics, the economic situation in Pakistan, the slow recovery in terms of its economy, leading to all these problems?
Well, the economic factor does provide fuel to these political situations such as the one which exists in Balochistan, because in Balochistan there is a long-standing perception amongst the people over there that the country, that province has received near colonial type treatment from the rest of Pakistan. So a fragile economy, high inflation, all of that contributes to the conundrum which exists in Balochistan today. But there is also a political aspect, because while the economic aspect is certainly there and it has is very important, there's also a political aspect, and the political aspect is that the Baloch have to be given, there has to be the impression created amongst them that they have a stake in the system. If their resources are being exploited and the benefits are not available for people who live over there, it will only breed further resentment and alienation.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador TCA Raghavan. Thank you for joining us and throwing light on the situation in Pakistan, in the Balochistan region, and the baseless allegations that they continue to make against India.